Hey guys, we have made it to the final video in this mini video series for McCall's 7625. This video is going to show you the sewing process from beginning to end. Just so you guys are aware, in these sort of videos, I definitely take out some of the simpler steps, but you do get to see from the beginning and kind of just the progression. I focus more on my steps that might be a little bit more complicated or that are really important for the piece. So things like hemming, I'm not going to cover, but if you are new to sewing or if you haven't sewn this sort of pattern before, this will definitely help you kind of go through the steps. So if you're watching this and you're making this at home, pull out your instruction sheets, and then as you watch the video, you can kind of see, okay, we're at here, we're at this step, we're at this step, we're at this step. Final thing is definitely stick around to the end of the video. I am going to be doing a giveaway, and so I'll be talking more about the details on that so you guys can participate and maybe win one of the prizes. So I'll go ahead and catch you guys at the end of the video. First things first, you want to go ahead and cut out your little squares to reinforce the corners. Now with this here, it's a 2 inch by 2 inch little square that you're going to put in, and all the little corners, there's a total of 4 that you have to sew in place. This is so that when you put in your princess seams later on, everything works perfectly and you are not stressing out that corner there. Definitely check out my small tutorial on that. There'll be another video in this series, but stay stitch everything, all your curves, and then go ahead and start working on the skirt. Luckily, the skirt itself is actually pretty straightforward. So this is me pinning the back pieces together. You want to go ahead and just stitch those, and then you can go ahead and attach the back pieces to the side. You can see how big the pattern piece is for the front bodice, and it is insanely large, so make sure that if you have a big table, you go ahead and spread everything out as best you can, gather up the top, and then you can go ahead and start working on the bodice. Now, the bodice back is pretty straightforward. There is a little bit of a slight curve on that back pattern piece, so just make sure to go slowly as you go, and then spend some time pressing. You want to make sure to get that natural curve in there. Now in this step here, I am working on the fisheye darts. The fisheye darts, if you are not familiar with fisheye darts, you have to think about them as both a waist dart and a bust dart combined. So I usually start from the center of the fisheye dart and then work my way down each of the legs. Now in this particular pattern, there are a total of 4 pattern pieces that have the fisheye dart. So just make sure to take your time, and then you can go ahead and start to sew the side front and the side back together. This was actually not how I expected this pattern to be constructed originally, but I went ahead and just followed the directions as, you know, as outlined, went with it, and it worked out pretty well. It made it easier to start doing the corner seams, as you can see that I'm starting to work on here. Though, as I said earlier, there is a small tutorial that'll show you this step in a little bit more detail, just because you want to make sure to put in the right amount of pins and then go slowly when you put in that pivot point in the armpit area. But these are almost all of the bodice pieces together. So this is the bodice back, and then the side back, and then the front side. And here I am attaching that to the giant front pattern piece, starting from that pivot point at the armpit area. Match up all your notches, so just make sure that you have all your notches clearly marked. You can go ahead and sew that in. Just go very slowly, especially as you're going over that princess seam and the curves. That can get really distorted if you go too quickly, and you don't want that. You want to make sure you get a smooth curve on those seams. Now at this point, your pattern or your garment is going to be looking pretty crazy. The bodice top is looking good, but then the skirt's not attached. So you want to go ahead and flip over the bodice and then attach that along the bottom of that bodice to the skirt. Make sure to take your time lining up all your edges. Luckily with this particular pattern, between the princess seams and then the front and back regular seams that are on this, it's pretty easy to identify where the gathers should be. So, you know, take your time, line up those different seams on the top and bottom, because if you don't take the time to do that, it'll be pretty obvious when you take everything apart and you can kind of see it's like, oh, well, that center back seam doesn't line up on the skirt to the top. It'll be very obvious. So make sure to take your time, even those out, and then you go ahead and stitch them in place. For the sleeves themselves, it's just a simple tube. So I'm going ahead and just pinning up the top. And then after you have sewn the top and actually pressed it, then do the bottom. I know a lot of people don't take the time to press their seams, and it really makes a difference. You want to go ahead and make sure to press that before you move on to the opposite side. Now this is the part that's a little bit interesting. You want to go ahead and turn your sleeves inside out so that you can actually sew in your corner seams. The corner seams, you're actually going to be doing 2 at the same time. Don't panic, pin everything. Watch the little tutorial video I did on that for the technique, because you're going to be going from one corner seam to the other, essentially going along the bottom of the arm side. Now when you do that step, just notches are going to be super important, as well as making sure to have the needle down as you're pivoting with the foot up on your sewing machine. But once you complete that, you can go ahead and turn that inside out and then work on the final pieces. I decided personally to use a contrast fabric for both the collar and the you know, the little sleeves and stuff, the sleeve ends. So for me, I use like this really nice dark blue fabric, 100% cotton, with a really thin interfacing that I really like to use. I wish I had a name for it, but it's kind of a, like almost like a mesh, and it always seems to work really well for these purposes. But go ahead, and once you sew those 2 pieces together, trim down those edges and then clip into your collar so that you can go ahead and press that and turn that out comfortably. And there is make sure to also follow the steps in the directions about kind of clipping in between the circles and having one side turned in. You'll see that once I finish the step here, that I kind of turned in this little section in the middle, and that'll help you when you're finishing up the collar at the very end. And that little section that's turned in is from the notches. In this step, I'm attaching the facings to my bodice. If you've had to do any lengthening or shortening on your bodice, before you cut anything out for the facing, just make sure that it lines up and that your facing piece is going to match. After you've sewn it up, you can go ahead and do the same thing, clipping everything in. I did not actually record any footage about me doing kind of an understitching, but I definitely recommend it just because this area is going to get a lot of wear and tear. So in addition to doing this clipping and this notching, just make sure to take the time to understitch it. And then you can go ahead and attach your collar. Now I prefer to do all of this between pins, hand basting, before I even go to the sewing machine, just because these pieces here are going to wiggle and they're going to fiddle around. It's actually really not super in-depth in terms of the directions about this. You're going to want to play with it a little bit to make sure that that collar fits, that the facing also fits into the collar, and then you can go ahead and hand stitch it closed. And here we have the sleeve hems. This one's actually a pretty easy application. I actually really like it just because it was so simple. It's just a plain rectangle that you sew down one side. You kind of turn it inside out, Like you turn the raw ends inside out and then kind of almost like fold it in half. But you're gonna want to put it onto your sleeve with the sleeve itself inside out, because once you sew along that sleeve edge, you're essentially going to be turning it right side out, if that makes sense. The first time I sewed this on, I actually sewed this in the incorrect way, so just be careful to visualize it being turned inside out. And then last but not least, once your sleeves are taken care of, is you want to go ahead and put the pattern piece down to put in your buttonholes and sew on your buttons, and you're good to go. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. As I said at the very beginning of the whole series, I understand that a lot of people sew very differently. Some of the things that I do might not work for everybody, but hopefully if you're beginner or even intermediate or advanced, it kind of gives you some different ideas of how other people do stuff. Maybe you can take something away from the video that works for you. Also, as for what I teased at the beginning of this video, I'm doing a giveaway of this particular pattern. I'm giving away one of the larger size and one of the smaller size of these guys. So definitely check out the description of this video below for more information. Also, stay tuned on the channel. I'm going to be doing more of these videos moving forward. These sort of partnership videos, I'll be doing like little mini series of the different new patterns, vintage patterns, will be coming soon. Yeah, I guess that's it. If you like the video, please go ahead, thumbs up, subscribe, all the places, all the stuff. Check out the Patreon. I'll be turning this guy inside out so you guys can see more details. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.